same name, but with a different schema you can create. You are not able to create a table with the same schema again, but you can create with a different schema. That is allowed, right? Again, if you want to create this dbo.employee, it will warn that there is already named the object name called as employee, right? So that is the difference. So that is how we will create our own schema, and we can create the table under that schema. Open May 2023 or DBO. Anything you can create. If you don't create anything, it will be created under DBO schema. That we need to remember. So how to create the schema? Create schema name. This is the command that we have to use. Simple, right? So this is the basic difference. Now, okay, my table is created. Okay, so I want to insert some data into my table, right? So insert into employee. So how can I mention employee ID, employee name, salary, date of joining, separation date is active, and DPT ID. Okay, now so I will insert some values. So employee ID is a kind of integer value it will accept. So I can insert one employee name. So always characters we have to specify in a single quotes. Otherwise, it will not allowed. If you don't give the single quotes, it will throw an error. And salary, so you can specify like this, and date of joining. So one more thing that I want to mention here is, so how to get the current system date, right? Current system date. So you have to write a command like select get date. This select get date will give you the current date and time. Of course, it is giving 4:51. It is running in mountain time, not in IST. Okay, so that's why you can see that difference. See, the time is now there is 4:51. So this is it will give you in this format. The default date format is date, month, year, month, and date, and the time part, right? So this is this get date will give you the current system date. Now I want to use this get date as part of my date of joining. Instead of specifying any hard-coded value, I want to use the get date function, or we can use it for separation date. Okay, we can hard code the date of joining. So date of joining I can keep like 05/19. Okay, separation date I can keep today's date. He is active, so since he is separated, so I can keep the flag as 0, and the department ID I can keep like 10. So this is how we will insert the data into the table. Now if you go and see the data within the table, what command we will write? Select star from employee. Right now you will be able to see the data, right? So this is how we basically create the basic table, and we will insert the data, right? Now if you observe, like I want to go this employee ID right now. if you look at it, so I can insert a record, one more record. So for now, I want to keep employee ID as null, and for some reason, I kept employee ID as null, and I entered rest of the details. I entered rest of the details. I entered rest of the details. The rows got inserted. Okay, if you go and select the data from the table, so this remaining data will have no, it's not something meaningful, right? If you don't have the employee ID created, so the rest of the data will not be, it's a kind of not making any sense, right? We are basically by mistake, some developer or some through some other application, we forgot to insert what is the employee ID. So it got inserted as null. If you don't insert anything also, it will basically insert as a null. If you don't keep this column and trying to insert, it will also do the same thing. Okay, for some reason, instead of inserting the value into this employee ID, so you inserted null. So the entire row is talking about what? Which employee ID? We don't know. So this entire data is not making any sense. So I want to restrict, right? While inserting the data into the table, I want to restrict, whether it should allow null values or not. Whether it should allow null values or not. So how can I restrict that? Okay, for that we have to, so I will go here. So now I want to drop my table because I want to modify my table. Okay, so without dropping also we can modify that, we will see now. But I want to drop my table. So how can I drop my table? What command we have to use? Drop table name. So this will kind of drop the table from the database. Now if you go and refresh, you will not find this table later. See, this table is there. Only this table is there, but dbo.employee is dropped. Now, what I want to do is, I want to, specify whether it is a nullable column or not nullable column. It should allow nulls or not. So I want the employee ID and the name should not be empty, should not be null. So that's why I can keep not null. So remaining all, if you don't specify the keyword called as null, that is fine. By default, it will consider as a nullable column. But if you want to keep, null again is that is also fine. If you don't want to keep as null externally, that is fine. That will be treated as a nullable column. But it's best practice to keep whether it is a nullable column or not null column. Okay, that is the best practice to keep. So salary might be null. Okay, you might not getting anything because of various reasons. Date of joining should be there. Date of separation, you might be working. The separation date might don't have, so we can keep it null. That is makes sense. So this also not null. So this indicates that whether it is working or not, right? Is working or not. So it's compulsory. It should have like either 1 or 0. A DPT ID, he might not be assigned to any department. So we can keep it as a null, right? So we can, this is called as, this not null is also called as constraint, one of the constraint, right? So this not null is called as constraint. Okay, so we will discuss about constraints in detail, but right now I want to introduce this not null. So just click on create, and Now, since you have mentioned the employee ID is not null, if anybody by mistake, they are trying to insert this record, it will throw an error saying that you cannot insert the null into the employee ID, right? So because you have mentioned that employee ID as a not null column, right? So that is the difference. Now, if you make it to, now you will be able to insert this record successfully, right? So that is how basically specify whether it is a nullable column or not null column using these keywords, null or not null. That is very much important, right? So since we have inserted only one record after we drop the table, so it has only one record. So if you want insert some other records, that's up to you. So we can just specify it, right? So this is how we will basically create the basic table. Now you have created the table. You have created the table and inserted some data. I want to delete all the data. I want to delete all the data with a single command. I want to keep this table structure. I want to keep these columns.
Sir, hello, sir.
Want
Sir,
to,
hello.
yeah.
Sir, ఈ font size కొంచెం increase చేయండి సార్ ప్లీజ్. ఓకే సార్, థ్యాంక్ యూ.
So after I create the table, I don't want to drop the table, okay, again and again, because it will, it will drop the entire structure. I mean, structure means this table structure, and then we will be able to, the table should be created first and then data. So instead of that, I want to delete only data. So how can I delete only data? So you can use the command called as truncate table employee. Truncate table employee. So this truncate table command will only delete the data, but not the columns. Columns will remain same. But drop table name will delete the entire column information. Entire column information. So that is the difference, right? Drop and truncate. Drop will basically drop the entire table structure, and truncate will basically delete only the data. It will keep the columns, right? That is one thing. And now, okay, you have inserted some data, you have created the table, right? All of a sudden the requirement has been changed. What has been changed? So here, if you observe, assume like the requirement is like this. So the business says that I don't want to maintain this department ID, or in this table, right? I want to drop this only column, because if you drop the table, you will be losing entire data. But I don't want to lose the entire data, right? So each and every time I cannot go and truncate or drop the table. What happens to your data? You will be losing the data if you drop or truncate. But without disturbing this table, I want to drop only this column. Or in case in future, you want to add a new column, or you want to change the data type of this particular columns. So for that matter, we have to use the alter statement. We have to use alter statement. So we will be using that, alter statement for various purposes. First thing is, I want to add a new column. So how can I add? The alter table name is employee, add, and the column name So what column that you want to basically add? So you can add like commission.